from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Another social leader has been killed in Colombia. Campesino leader Carmen Elizabeth Tintinago was killed in the Cauca region. Her name adds up to the list of more than 2,000 social leaders killed since the government and the FARC signed the peace agreement. Social organizations are urging authorities to protect their leaders. 164 have been killed this year alone. Our correspondent in Bogota, Jose Manuel Jimenez, has more details.
Social organizations and victims of the internal armed conflict have demanded President Iván Duque fulfill the peace agreement with the FARC and to resume the peace talk with the National Liberation Army. The armed conflict in Colombia has taken the lives of more than 160 social leaders and human rights activists in different regions of the country, such as the Department of Antioquia, where 28 social leaders have been killed and 4,000 people displaced from their homes. The situation in other departments is similar, and they're urging the government to find new measures to reach peace.
Meanwhile, social organizations and human rights defenders are urging authorities to guarantee the lives of journalists as well. We have more in this report.
The last 2 years has registered the highest number of social leaders killed. Violence is also threatening the lives of journalists around the country.
In September, we received a threat for some investigations we published. It was footage of the paramilitary and information on the false positive case that involves the paramilitary as well as military personnel. This worries us because this case was presented in a court of the special jurisdiction for peace.
According to press freedom organization FLIP, the threats and murders of social leaders have rose. 59 cases of threats were presented in 2015, 90 in 2016, and 129 in 2017.
The same people that are threatening the fight of social leaders are also threatening campesinos, indigenous people, and the youth. They're also preventing people from fighting for their rights and preventing journalists to report on this conflict.
Member of the Commission of Safety Guarantees, Franklin Castañeda, says that even though this new government has promoted different dialogue tables to resolve the situation, no measure has been taken to tackle violence.
There have been spaces of dialogue between civilians and the state. The international community has monitored this dialogue and have asked for measures to protect social leaders and defenders.
Social movements are taking their own measures to protect the lives of leaders and journalists and guarantee their work.
We are promoting self-protection. We are doing this through knowing our territory and promoting the relations with our people. We are guaranteeing our rights.
According to the non-governmental organization, in the past, the presence of armed groups in the country has rose. Paramilitary groups reported to be in Antioquia, Arauca, Atlántico, Bolívar, Boyacá, Caldas, Cauca, Cesar, and Córdoba. Meanwhile, the Pelusos armed group and the National Liberation Army control Santander and the north of Santander.
Our biggest fear is that people from the intelligence services are linked to these groups. We don't understand how certain people are threatened and others are protected. There's no evidence of who is behind these threats.
Journalists, social leaders, and human rights organizations say that the government does not know who these groups are and how they operate. President Duque said he was committed to fight violence. However, until now, the government has not met with civilians, social movements, or human rights organizations.
3 people have been arrested in Venezuela linked to the attack against President Nicolás Maduro in early August. Communications Minister Jorge Rodríguez identified Heribert Rivas and retired Colonel Ángela Lisbeth Esposita as those who lead the failed assassination attempt. Rodríguez said authorities continue to search for 2 others connected to the attack. The government has asked Chile, Colombia, and Mexico to clarify if any embassy workers could be involved.
This attack could have taken us towards a very difficult situation, to serious consequences for the Venezuelan people, to a situation of violence if these criminals would have succeeded in their attack. President Maduro will give the pertinent orders to his foreign minister, Jorge Arreaza, so that these public officials clarify from Chile, Colombia, and Mexico their alleged involvement. There's no diplomatic immunity in case of cover-up of terrorists.
Still in Venezuela, a Chinese ship has arrived into the country to provide medical support. Chinese healthcare experts will provide assistance and will have a knowledge exchange as well. This is part of the 28 cooperation agreements President Nicolás Maduro signed with China during his most recent visit. The Peace Ark boat docked in the port of La Guaira.
They will be here for a week, taking care of patients of all nationalities. People have already shown their interest. The governor tells me that over 1,200 Colombians will be helped here.
Venezuelan People's Minister of Petroleum, Manuel Quevedo, has met with the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Secretary General Mohamed Barkindo. Quevedo is in Algeria to attend a meeting of the organization. He says Venezuela wants to strengthen mechanisms to defend oil prices. His government is also aimed at promoting cooperation to guarantee stability in the oil market. Brazil's Workers' Party presidential candidate, Fernando Haddad, continues his campaign in the city of Recife. Recife is the hometown of former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, who Haddad is replacing in the presidential run. Along with vice presidential candidate Manuela Dávila, he defended the importance of investing in education.
We never left any Brazilians behind. None of our opponents were left behind in Lula's Brazil. We took care of all Brazilian states in the same way.
Haddad is the hope. Brazil will be happy again. May he reinstate government of hope that existed during Lula's time in office.
Meanwhile, U.S. intellectual and activist Noam Chomsky has visited Lula in Curitiba, where he's being held. Chomsky highlighted the importance of the coming election and said Lula should be rise to be country's next president. He also said he was pleased to see that Lula is lively and optimistic about his future.
It's not every day that one meets one of the most significant figures of the 21st century and the person who, by rights, should be the next president of Brazil.
Our correspondent Ignacio Lemos tells us more.
A new poll has confirmed Fernando Haddad is second in the polls for the upcoming presidential election. Now he is replacing former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva in the race. Some believe votes are still transferring from one to another. Polls give far-right-wing candidate Jair Bolsonaro the first place with a 28%. Haddad is behind with 16% and center-left candidate Ciro Gomez with 13% of the votes. Candidate Geraldo Alckmin, ally of Michel Temer, has 13% of the votes. In last place is environmentalist and center candidate Marina Silva with 7%. Meanwhile, intellectual Noam Chomsky paid a visit to former President Lula da Silva in Curitiba. Chomsky is one of the most relevant figures of the last century and showed his support to Lula in a key moment in Brazil's democracy.
That was Ignacio Lemos from Brazil. Chile insists it won't negotiate any part of its territory with Bolivia. This comes 10 days before the International Court of Justice in The Hague decides on Bolivia's demand to gain access to the Pacific. Foreign Minister Roberto Ampuero met with former foreign ministers to agree on a stand about the dispute. They allege Chile will keep the borders that were established on the 1904 treaty. But Bolivia says dialogue is the only option to end the dispute. Foreign Minister Diego Pari is confident his country has presented a solid case to the court in The Hague. Bolivia argues that Chile had not kept its diplomatic promises and obligations to negotiate sea access, namely a land corridor and port under its control. We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute.
Documentaries presents.
A white man cannot get away with killing a young black man for whatever reason. He ain't have a gun or knife, that's execution style.
The Mike Brown Rebellion. Today, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega has headed a massive demonstration calling for peace. Ortega condemned what he called violent acts promoted by opposition groups. He also said his government will not hold early elections. Thousands of people flooded the streets of Managua to show their support.
Just as we had to wait for 18 years to win the election, the opposition will have to wait until 2021. They can form their political party however they want. It is with elections and votes that the government in Nicaragua will be changed.
At least one person has been reportedly killed as clashes erupted between protesters and riot police during an anti-government protest. 4 others were also wounded. The victim is reportedly a 16-year-old student. Demonstrators were marching in Managua to call for the release of those detained in previous demonstrations. Peru's Attorney General has opened a new investigation against former President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. He's investigated for alleged vote buying to avoid his impeachment. The Attorney General is accusing Kuczynski and other lawmakers of bribery. The former president previously said accusations of vote buying were, quote, a big lie. We continue in Peru, where police officers have inspected a nightclub in central Lima in an effort to fight human trafficking. Over 1,000 women have been saved from trafficking networks in the country so far this year, including 130 foreigners. Authorities launched a campaign focused at recognizing potential aggressors or traffickers. A journalist has been killed in the Mexican state of Chiapas. Mario Gomez was shot several times by 2 men riding a motorbike. He was a correspondent for the local newspaper El Heraldo de Chiapas and well known for denouncing violence. He's the 9th journalist to be killed in the country this year. At least 166 bodies have been discovered in a mass grave in Mexico. Experts are working at the site in the state of Veracruz to identify the remains. Meanwhile, relatives of missing family members hope to receive news of their loved ones. This is the latest mass grave found in a region hit by the bloody war on drugs that the country has carried since 2006. A 6-year-old girl has reunited with her family in Honduras months after her father was deported by U.S. immigration officials. Mariana Ponce was separated from her father in June and was taken to a children's shelter. Her parents fear she could be traumatized by the experience. U.S. authorities have separated almost 3,000 children from their parents as they crossed the southern border with Mexico.
From what he's done with me, I don't like Donald Trump as a person. This separation is hard. It's something ugly that no one deserves. I'm angry, I'm frustrated because he's made me suffer for some 4 months.
Border barriers are also a threat for nature. American bisons or buffaloes are trying to survive in the Mexican state of Chihuahua, right next to the U.S. border. Experts say the species is threatened due to the fence that divides both countries. Now some farms are aimed at protecting these animals' pure lineage. The body of Bohan Jean has arrived at St. Lucia. He was shot by a police officer in Dallas, Texas in early September. His killing gathered nationwide attention in the U.S. and the world, sparking several protests. Bohan's mother, Allison Jean, thanked the people of St. Lucia for their support.
It's a tragic loss for us. I still have not been able to come to grips with it, but I just want to extend appreciation to everyone, but to also ask that you respect our family's privacy. I ask that we do not sensationalize the situation, do not politicize the situation. I would like Botham to continue to be respected even in his death. So let's not get too over our heads.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says his country is ready to enhance cooperation with the Caribbean Community, or CARICOM. Wang said that both parties share common interests. He added that their cooperation represents a vital part of their ties with Latin America. China will provide countries with assistance within the framework of the South-South participation. Thousands of people parade in Tegucigalpa to celebrate the city's 440 years as a capital of Honduras. Locals watch the parade of dancers, horses, classic vehicles, and motorcycles as they listen to musical groups for half a kilometer. The festivity is expected to end early on Sunday. This September 23rd marks the 45th anniversary of the death of Chilean poet Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda died days after the military coup against late President Salvador Allende in 1973. The official version said he died from cancer, but in 2016, this was proven fake, as calls for the truth on his death continue. Neruda was also a diplomat who fought for his communist ideals.
Los que cayeron defendiendo el honor fueron los pueblos, llamo hasta las raíces de mi tierra.
El Salvador's president, Salvador Sánchez Serén, has thanked Cuba for supporting a literacy program. Over 3,000 people have learned to write and read thanks to this program. Sánchez Serén says Cuba's support has been key for its success. The 4th edition of the Havana Film Festival is preparing to take place in December. This year, the aesthetic of filmmakers from the region will be tributed.
Entering the home of renowned Cuban filmmaker Gerardo Chijona allows cinema fans to review his extensive work. More than 8 of his films are exhibited in the Festival of the New Latin American Cinema. He has taken part in the festival since it first began in December 1979.
We wanted to have a festival for the Cuban audience. At that time, it was named the New Cinema, which I think it is something that needs to be reviewed. There are new movies, but as two movements, I feel that it no longer has the coherence it had before. For the filmmakers that come from abroad, to have that contact with filmmakers and to see the reaction of the Cuban audience is important.
Every year, the Havana Film Festival is the place to be to enjoy the best movies that are produced around the world, but especially in Latin America and the Caribbean. Its organizers want this year's edition to be focused on the aesthetics of the filmmakers that first promoted the festival.
This festival will celebrate the 40 years of Tomás Gutiérrez Alea. He was a paradigmatic filmmaker, not only in Cuba, but in Latin American and world as well. There will be a discussion panel dedicated to his work.
Film critics consider that the Havana Film Festival has left a footprint in the cinema world, showing the problems that the region faces.
Topics have changed with time. I remember in the 70s, the topics in the film focused on the dictatorships and the social movements. But from the 90s, films have shown new topics.
The festival has the challenge to attract a new audience with a special aesthetic in a world where cinema consumption has changed as new technologies continue to develop.
Authorities in Peru have recovered almost 2,000 pre-Hispanic artifacts that were stolen from the country. Many of these treasures were made out of ceramics, textiles, stones, and wood. Artifacts were repatriated from Australia, the United Kingdom, and Holland. We'll take a short break now. World News is next.
With developing events being presented through analysis, our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The Kenyan film Rafiki has been broadcasted for the first time in Nairobi on the back of a court decision allowing the screening. The LGBTI community celebrated the screening and said it was a step forward towards ending discrimination. The movie that tells the love story between two women was allowed to be screened for a week after being banned for several months.
I'm so excited that we've been finally allowed to watch it. It's been a year and a half. We filmed last year and we were so excited, really want to watch it. But now, I'm so glad the ban has been lifted, even if it's just for a week. But a week can move into a month, into a year. And even from the crowd that is here, you already see everybody is so excited about watching this movie.
I think it's great that the ban was lifted for the movie to be shown. I think it shows progressiveness, or the fact that we're moving into the right direction.
Che Guevara's hometown in Cuba has become the island's most LGBTI-friendly city. The city is home to El Menjuje Cultural Center, a place famous for its drag queen shows since 1984. Over the last few decades, the surrounding Villa Clara province has developed into a haven for the LGBTI community. Santa Clara has also been at the forefront of the push to legalize gay marriage, something included in the new draft constitution. And September 23rd marks the Celebrate Bisexuality Day. This to call for the recognition and respect of bisexual community. This day also focuses on breaking stereotypes. It insists that bisexuality is not a phase, but another valid sexual orientation. 18 people have been killed in a rebel attack in the Beni region in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Among the victims are 14 civilians. A doctor at the local hospital reported seeing 16 dead bodies. The Beni region is under siege from the Allied Defense Forces, an Islamic rebel group blamed for hundreds of deaths over the past 4 years. At least 115 people have been killed and 383 injured in Libya's capital Tripoli after a month of fight between rival factions. The fighting has knocked out most power stations in the city and crippled Tripoli's main airport. Residents have been forced to flee. The African Union has called for Eswatini to end any ban on political parties. This comes a day after parliamentary elections in the country. Candidates cannot be affiliated to any political group under the constitution. Eswatini is ruled by a monarch and was known as Swaziland until early this year. Flash floods in Tunisia's Cap Bon Peninsula have killed at least 4 people. Saturday's storm caused water levels in some areas to rise as much as 1.7 meters. Bridges and roads were damaged in record rains that dropped the equivalent of nearly 6 months of average precipitation. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has accused the U.S. of providing financial and military support for anti-government groups in Iran. The armed groups are believed to be behind an attack on a military parade in the city of Abbas, in which 25 people died. Rouhani called the U.S. a bully who wants to create insecurity in the Islamic Republic.
The small puppet countries that we see in the region are backed by America. The United States is provoking them and giving them necessary capabilities to commit these crimes.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says President Donald Trump is willing to talk to Rouhani. This after U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley dismissed Iran's accusation that the U.S. and its Gulf allies were to blame for the deadly parade attack. Christine Blasey Ford has agreed to testify before Senate after accusing U.S. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. The Senate Judiciary Committee had delayed a vote on Kavanaugh's confirmation after Ford's allegation last week. Her lawyers and the committee staff were negotiating the conditions of her testimony. Thousands of pensioners have rallied in Spain's capital, Madrid. They call for higher state pensions and demand government action. They want the government to raise retirement pensions in line with inflation. Since 2014, retirement pensions have raised by a below inflation 0.25% per year.
Pensions should at least be at the cost of life, but right now we're way behind that. The price of electricity is constantly rising, water too, everything. Each time we get less, and then they're not ashamed to raise pensions, just by 1.25%, below inflation, which is €1. Come on, it's enough.
We come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.